Hello, welcome to the Down Trank Ecstasy Side Downtown East Side podcast. I look at the Downtown East Side from a frontline worker's point of view. This is my second episode, and it's a very special episode, maybe the most important one I'm going to do. This podcast is dedicated to my former self, Ian McLeod. The title is Unresolved Issues. Opening statement. Before I continue, I'm going to be reading my crypt notes, a whole lot of crypt notes. Now, for my first episode, I had some feedback, and it was positive, and a lot of people said my presentation needed a lot of work. So I'm afraid this isn't going to be much improvement. I'm going to be reading a lot. This podcast is very important. Like I said, it's dedicated to my former self, and when Ian let me take charge, there was just this one issue that was left unresolved, and it meant a lot. And I wasn't going to let it go. Ian wanted me to have the life. He wanted me to have everything. He left me a job, a union job, high-paying job with a pension. He wanted me to have a life a girl could have, I just had to go out and grab it. He gave me everything. And I told him I'd be strong enough that I would do what I needed to do to be brave enough to get through these things, and this is what I'm doing for him. So, yeah. So, opening statement. Oh, plus, as far as my presentation goes, I tried to play dramatic music behind me through this whole thing for my presentation, but it seemed a little distracting, so I figured I would just pretty myself up really nice, as good as I could get for presentation values. So there you go. Okay, on with the show. Opening statement. The Washington Needle Depot opened to the downtown east side in 1993. However, I'm a little uncertain of the exact year. That's the best date I could find. However, its birth wasn't without controversy. You see, there was already an existing needle program in town, run by a different nonprofit than the one running the Washington Needle Depot, DEYAS, Divine International Youth Association. And they opposed the nonprofit running the Washington Needle Depot. You see, they had two different mandates. DEYAS mandate was they give you a needle, you bring your dirty needle back for another, or how many dirty ones in exchange for that many clean ones. Me personally, I was an IV drug user at this time in my life, although not a heavy user. I do remember a program like this in Surrey. It was in Whalley, right beside the front room shelter. A trip down memory lane. I also remember buying rigs at drugstores. Shoppers was addict friendly, but not always. I think a few ma and pa's might have been too, but that's a lot of years ago now. Doing the research on this, I was also reminded before the Washington Needle Depot opened and needles weren't readily accessible, the going price on the street was as high as $10 and as low as $5 for a needle, which is really harsh when you're wired to heroin. Vancouver had another problem, HIV. And Vancouver was starting to lead the world in a health crisis. Because drug-dependent people didn't have access to clean needles, but there were other health concerns as well. I remember having to sharpen used dull needles on match covers to sharpen them. Like that wrecked my veins. And I heard people more desperate doing worse to get the needle into their veins. And this ended with the Washington Needle Depot winning the fight. They were the unanimous winner. HIV rates came down. What looked good on paper, a 24/7, 7-day a week, 365 day a year harm reduction window that never shuts down, giving out free harm reduction supplies to the community while responding to overdoses in the community, while also operating a volunteer program where people went out picking up used needles, started. What could be better, right? I'll make a case that the nonprofit running the Washington Needle Depot should have been better. Okay, my PowerPoints. This nonprofit pays volunteers $10 an hour, exploiting the disadvantaged and the marginalized members of the downtown Eastside community, paying well under minimum wage, leaving it up to the ministry to support their employees. Meanwhile, they have received government funding for their programs, which makes them, in my opinion, labor pimps. This nonprofit had a chance to pay union wages instead of food stamps, not having its workers living in the downtown east side on welfare, making a statement to society that we are productive human beings. Instead, they lined their pockets a lad for profit. Didn't say that, but I'll say that now. Question. Who is the government funding really for anyhow? I asked this question to rounders on my overnight shift in a piss-smelled, darkened alley. What is a rounder, you may ask? Someone who has been around. Mostly all of them said, and bless their hearts, harm reduction is for everybody. I challenged that. I said, condoms are for everybody. Especially for the young kids at raves on a Friday night, all high on Molly, fucking like rabbits. But, seriously, when you walk into Piss Alley at 3 a.m. and you ask for a piece of foil and a tube, or ask for a rig pack, that's only for a very few. And then I also added, I would tell you who it isn't for. The people in the brand new pearly office that get all this funding and spend it on themselves when we don't even have socks, blankets, or meals. I'm reminded of a scene from The Matrix when Neo sees all the humans hooked up to the pods as far as the eye can see. The machines are using the humans as batteries. I want to do a shirt similar with drug-dependent people. Downtown East Side, hooked up to tubes, and their eyes all sucked in, no socks, and the top of the tubes all have dollars flying out of them. Dollar bills flying out. And on the top of that, I want it to read non-profit. Just like the Matrix. The non-profits are sucking us dry, using us for their batteries, their money source. They don't want us to get better. The non-profit has housing in its name, but yet hired homeless people and never housed them. I think I would do this podcast in 2 parts, so I'll cover more next episode. That'll be titled Becky the Whiny Bitch. Okay, Your Honor and jury. Here's where I make my case. I'll still continue presenting evidence to back up my opening statement, but if I can't sway you with these facts now, I doubt I'll win my case. And maybe all my ex-co-workers might be right about me. I'm just being a whiny bitch. After all. Rick and Angel both told me to drop it. I was just being a troublemaker. I'm sorry, guys. It hurts me too much for me to ever stop something both of you mean too much. I worked with you too long, and I had to sit there for too long to watch hard problem shutting up when this bullshit happens. Both of you mean too much. Not my monkey, not my zoo, right? Both of you know I can't shut up. Especially that skinny little evil transphobic Irishman, ex-boss, knows me. I'll speak my mind. I told him as much. Rick and Angel helped start the NEATO program at the Washington for food stamps. To the best of my math, and I'm no scholar, 33 years ago, they have been frontline workers, first responders, working at an essential service for over 33 years, never making more than $15 an hour. Finally, when the window voted to go union because of working conditions and unfair pay, a judge said we were worth $30 an hour and a pension, which of course beat the food stamps. Rick and Angel started for food stamps, and I started for $7.80 an hour. However, unbelievably, Rick and Angel weren't included in the union. In fact, they were told if they wanted to keep working, they would now have to take a pay cut from $15 an hour down to $10. And I did add this, but they had to work an overnight shift to boot, 12 to 4. And this was in spite of still being scheduled weekly. Still scheduled. We do a land acknowledgement where we are mostly liberal here. I guess we believe in DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, but yet we let injustice like this happen. Rick and Angel both live in the SROs. Rick at the Jubilee, Angel at the Marple Arch. They both reversed more ODs in a week than the whole staff at that Washington window do in their fucking lifetime. We are still in an opioid crisis. This crisis affects disproportionately the Indigenous community more than any other community, Your Honor. But now I'd like to address the jury again. Doing Rick and Angel a huge misjustice right now, not mentioning what they have done for this community and beyond. Rick and Angel have got us through the HIV crisis, the China white crisis, and the conditions while doing this in the most dangerous alley in Canada at great personal risk. And this is how we repay them? A story about Angel. One day on shift, Angel came to the depot talking about being stabbed. Silly Becky, thought he was telling me a story of many times he was stabbed before. Finally, he had to get mad at me to understand. I have never seen him mad in 15 years. Angel is a medicine man. Oh my God, he was stabbed in the side. It all ended well. I helped treat the wound. Angel ended up okay. A true warrior. My next story about Rick and the mother of his son Nadine and his friend, for years, even to this day, they hold a special bond. This wound that happened to them at the time of COVID, I'm afraid will never heal. Rick never talks about it. It will stay bottled up. Rick is that way. I'm sorry, Rick, if I'm betraying you. At the time of COVID, Rick and Nadine's son died back east. Because of COVID, Rick and Nadine weren't allowed to attend their son's funeral. I remember Rick telling me he saved so many people from overdoses, but he couldn't save the most important person in his life from one. All that is tragic, but what makes matters worse, the nonprofit we work for didn't even reach out to them. By this time, I think I built a solid case to back up my opening statement. Yes, we need a harm reduction program like we have today, free and accessible. But we also need one not run by profiteers and parasites. Is there such a nonprofit out there? I believe there is. But my case isn't over yet. Opportunity lost. What the Needle Depot was and what it represented under the management of Doug Farrell, Sarah Whidden, Dave Epsey was a program that showed drug-dependent people could work independently, free from continued management. On my evening shift, I worked 5 nights a week. Sarah would stop by every couple weeks to shoot the shit with me. We mostly talked about fun stuff. I loved my boss even way back then. Today she's my bestie and my everything. We also had monthly supervised meetings where all supers got together to meet. This, Your Honor, was unheard of back then, and it is to this day. Excuse me. For anyone listening, if you and your significant other were to start a business and you said, honey, our business will be a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week essential service with first responders and frontline workers, and you said to your significant other, I'll go pick up the supplies, you hire the staff, and you came home only to find out they hired a crew all in active addiction. Well, I'm not going to guess your response because I'll be judging you. Anyhow, this nonprofit had a world-class model, but they chose to listen to the board director's decision. Who are these people? Right? So in conclusion, I presented my case against this nonprofit, and to be fair, they can't be here to defend themselves against these allegations. Maybe they'll defend themselves against me some way, I don't know. But I'll try to make their case for them. This nonprofit will say, we have done such great things for this community. We have gave you the Washington Needle Depot. We have gave you Insight. We gave you Safer, which is a free fentanyl program. We gave you MOPS, which is an overdose prevention society. And of course, rundown SROs. And to be fair, they have a new building now, which is beautiful. But on cross-examination, I would challenge all those programs. They have got funding for all of them. I will go back to the Matrix example. This nonprofit never wants to do anything to separate the tube away from the drug-dependent person that releases dollar bills to them. We are the money source. However, there is one program they run, to be fair, it is on-site. I spent many times there, and I'm forever grateful for on-site and the manager Liz, who no longer manages it. God bless Liz. But I'm sorry, this nonprofit is still guilty. I know too much after 15 years. I know they don't want decriminalization that would reduce stigmatization and decriminalization. And would help the drug-dependent people, and furthermore, bring an end to the opioid crisis. That is my belief. How do I know this? I wrote a paper on decriminalization that was published in the Megaphone, and I posted it in the depot wall. This evil manager, Lauren, ripped it down and told me the depot isn't the place for that. True story. I'm planning to do a podcast on decriminalization soon. So, that's my second podcast. The end. But just the beginning. Thank you. Toodles.